5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye, hello. Wherever you are in the world, one of those will apply to you. You can't deny it. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us live on YouTube. If that is how you are participating, please join in the chat. And if you are listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for lending me your ears. And of course, if you're watching it on catch up, you can always add your comments in below, which we always appreciate. We've got a few people in already. Ronald McDonald is in. Hello, sir. How the devil are you? And we've also got Prashant in. Want to ask why you add goodbye to your greetings, not finding fault, just curious. You know, everything I do, and you find, because it's got a good between in it. So you've got good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. There's all the goods in there. You know, Peter Kay doesn't have this much trouble, I'm sure. And Blue Fox is in as well. How are you doing all the way from Canada? There. Well done, sir. Welcome along. Look, nothing's happening. I was hoping that we might have some news to celebrate in the fact that he had gone. Unfortunately, he hasn't. We've still got him. We can't get rid of him. He's like a fart in a lift. He just hangs around. And I'm sure he's probably actually had everything. He's probably found a little hole in the gate or somewhere that he gets in, but we have still got him. So we're going to look. I got excited yesterday, you know, on Friday and Monday, England scoring a couple of goals. That's how bad it is. And I am going to produce those I remember when Leicester City scored a goal t-shirts. I think I could make a bomb. We're going to forget all that. We're going to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a reminisce, and we're going to go down memory lane and look at, well, he's there. A couple of them, the class of 2015, 2016. Do you remember those good days? You know, we scored goals and we actually won games, and you know, it was just a distant memory. But my God, it was fun, wasn't it? Prashant, I would take my hat off to you, sir. Good evening, everybody. How the devil are we all?
Good,
all
thank
good.
you.
Before we get started, Chris, can you help me out? Because I can work out a couple of those caricatures, but I can't work out who the one in the green shirt and the green cap is.
So we think we're funny, do we? We think we're funny.
Cue me disappearing.
Indeed. Yeah.
Genius.
You got that right, sir. You got that right. I tell you what, my caricature is actually better looking than me. So if I could, I'd be having that hair. Don't you worry about it. Craig adds here, yeah, Rude is still here like a bad fart, definitely. Look, 2015, 2016, we're going to have a look back on that. And I have to say, it was, I got it from, well, it wasn't actually your mate, Craig, Jordan Blackwell. It was actually Matt Davis who wrote a bit. What's happened to Leicester City's 2016 Premier League title winners nearly 9 years on? 9 years ago. I mean, look, Kate, let's come to you first. Can you still believe that it happened?
No, and I don't know about you guys, but when we won it and then the following season, it felt like, okay, we're in with a shout of being like sort of building on something and getting top four maybe, or doing really well in the Champions League as transpired. But then after that, like the further time's passed, the more it becomes unbelievable. Like each year that passes, you're kind of like, God, we actually did that. We won the Premier League, which was just unbelievable. Like you would never have been able to forecast it in your lifetime or next lifetime even. So yeah, I feel like the more time that passes, the more unbelievable it is. And I did feel that at the time a little bit. I wanted to savor it, and it just never ended, really.
Craig, do you think the fact that we are now as bad as we are makes it even more unbelievable?
I don't think anything could make it more unbelievable than it actually was. I mean, let's face it, we've been fans for a lot longer than these two youngsters over this side. We would never, we would never have believed that was going to happen, you know, even in their lifetimes, to be honest.
He's just called us young.
I know, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Flattered.
And so it was unbelievable at the time. Yeah, you're right. It does, you know, give you like warm, fuzzy feelings that it actually happened to us. You know, if that was going to happen, you always thought it was going to be someone else, Norwich, Southampton, or whatever, some other, you know, second-rate team as we're at the minute. But you know, with it has come the poison chalice of expectation. And everything else that comes with it. But no, it was a fantastic time. And you know what? If we win nothing again, for me, it's something that I never expected. And that's why, you know, there's years and years and years and years and decades in the bank for the people who brought that win to us.
Brad, I found myself doing this only about 2 nights ago on YouTube. One of those nights where I can't sleep, I was going down the YouTube rabbit hole and actually searching and watching Leicester City's Premier League celebrations again. Is it just me, or do you still occasionally have it on?
Yeah, I mean, occasionally it's always nice to go back and remind us of fond memories, especially during this season. You know, it's one of them, Chris, as well. You know, it gets even more unbelievable the more time goes on, because the longer it goes between us winning and someone else that isn't the top 6, plus Newcastle, they're like, you know, because they're like the rich billionaire add-ons. Because no one's laid a glove on the challenge, have they? And the media have tried their best at certain points. Notts Forest this season, I think Brighton a few seasons ago, doing a Leicester, almost praying and wishing that they'd do something spectacular. I'm not saying, you know, these teams getting top 4, top 5 isn't spectacular. It's great in its own right. But the fact that no one's even come close to achieving what we achieved that season, respectfully tells it where it is. And I'll take all the poison chalices you can throw at me, you know, Craig, if this is what it's going to lead to, you know, because you'd give every body part known to man to see it for some clubs, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
Can I just say, I was timing that, Kate, and you took longer than I thought you would. If anybody wonders what I'm talking about, please go back and watch last week's show.
I was listening intently to Bradley.
Well, Bradley. I think that's war, Kate. I do. Right, let's get into this. So, nearly 9 years ago, less a few months, The squad members have earned their trophy and now spread, says Matt Davis, far and wide. So we're going to start and run through, and I'm giving you all sort of a list of players, just your memories of them. And we'll go through them with a little brief introduction, courtesy of Matt. We'll start, Kate, there with you, ladies first. Kasper Schmeichel. He says it. Oh God, what's he saying there? He's still City's first choice goalkeeper. Kasper Schmeichel is still good. Now, I should have read this first. This is how good, I suppose, Leicestershire Live are.
Wow.
Sorry?
It's good number one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I obviously he's had plastic surgery. Look, he moved on. He left in unfortunate circumstances. I don't think he particularly wanted to go, and I don't know why we got rid of him. We only got $1 million for him. There's other players that cost us a lot more, and obviously he's now doing the job at Celtic. He will always be, when you look back and talk about the greats at whatever position they played, he's always going to be up there, isn't he, Kate?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Sven brought him in, bless him, God rest his soul. And
Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone in thinking that when he arrived, he was just going to be okay, and also living in his dad's shadow a little bit. And we couldn't have been proven more wrong. Like, he is almost like as good as his dad, really. I think they both won the Premier League at the same age. They're the only father-son combo to win the Premier League. But during that season in particular, I don't know if you remember, I think it was partway through the season, we couldn't keep a clean sheet for Toffee. So Claudio Ranieri said he was going to pay everybody a pizza if we kept a clean sheet. And I think we then consequently did. So Kasper was just such a presence and personality on the pitch. He was really agile, and yeah, we couldn't have done it without him, really. He was obviously no doubt a big personality in the changing rooms, with Wes as well. And, you know, you've read all the stories about him being a perfectionist and taking umpteen pairs of clubs with him and being quite OCD and everybody laughing at him and being part of the team. So, yeah, he was such a great buy for us. And what was it, like 11 or 12 years he ended up being with us.
This isn't going to happen, but obviously, let's say Mabs goes in the summer and there was a chance that we could take him back. And goalkeepers do play on longer than outfield players, unless you call Jordan Ayew or Bobby DeCover-Reid. So I just had to get that in there. Would you have him back now, or really has his time gone?
I think his time's gone now. I personally thought he was on the decline a little bit when he left us. Some of his presence in the box wasn't great. His positioning wasn't great, and we were conceding. It felt like every time we had a corner, we conceded, and some of that was down to Kasper. He's going to be late 30s, 38, 39. He's got to be. You wouldn't want to blight what's happened before. If he came back in a coaching capacity, it'd be totally different. I think he'd be quite the presence in the dressing room and in the club as a whole. But for a player, no, I think his time's gone. And I really like Jakob. I think Jakob's a really good backup keeper. Not even a backup keeper. I think he's good enough to start. He's just been eclipsed by probably a little, world-class keeper, really, in a few years' time. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. It's about the only position I'm happy with is at the moment.
Yes. Anybody's interested, going along the bottom there, you've got the whole 2015-16 squad. Unfortunately, you drew the short straw here, Craig. We do get to talk about a player that A, never played, and B, on whom Tom styles his facial hair. The great bearded one that is Ben Hamer.
Yeah, I'm going to say there's, as we're talking about everyone in the squad here, there are going to be players that we need to keep it brief about. Yes. And Ben Hamer is one. Because as you say, he didn't play. He only made, do you know how many appearances he actually made for the club? Because it seems like the way he's talked about it.
I guess that.
What did you say?
My guess is that
he actually played for the club.
Yeah.
No, he played 12 times.
Fuck. Yeah.
But I mean, the funny thing is, when you say that, we all go, that many?
Yeah, but the way people talk about him, the worst goalkeeper ever, it's like he played enough to get that that title. He did play in the Champions League away to Porto, for which he let 5 in. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you lose your place on the bench to Mark Schwarzer, who's probably old enough to be his dad, then I think your days are numbered. So, there's not a lot to say about
rivaling goals conceded versus appearances, do you? You don't want those numbers.
Exactly. So not a lot to say about him other than lovely beard.
Yeah. Who was that goalkeeper that we had recently? I think we got him from Hull.
Jakubovic.
Jakubovic. It was like Jakubovic of early days, and there was another one as well going back.
Conrad
Logan. Yeah.
The man who officially did eat all the pies.
I mean, I suppose we do need a third goalkeeper, but look, talking of third goalkeepers, Brad, and being part of the Brad Union, Goalkeepers Union, I should say, Mark Schwarzer, Australian. Can I just say, sorry, just go back to Ben Hamer. He's actually still playing. He's at Sheffield Wednesday. And when I say still playing, he's not actually played for them, but he's at the club.
I think
Mark
he still lives
Schwarzer.
in this area because I see him down my gym sometimes with Nugent.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, doing a bit of stalking, are we, Kate?
They can't see me hiding in the hedge. It's fine.
Yeah, she's wearing all green.
Yeah.
Well, what can I say? Anyway, we'll leave Kate in the bush. Brad, talk to us about Mark Schwarzer, who did make a couple of appearances, didn't he?
He did. I believe they were all in the Great Escape season. Not as fairly impressive in his own right, but not as impressive as the Premier League winning one for obvious reasons. The only memories I have of him, unfortunately, in a Leicester shirt is he did a Chelsea, didn't he? He snuck in the back door like someone sneaking into a VIP club, lifted the trophy and pissed off as soon as he did it. The biggest memory I have is he Nigel Pearson put him in goal in the Great Escape season to give Casper a rest or was injured. And I'm pretty sure he's still diving to save that penalty against Man City away to this day, because I've never seen a keeper dive so slowly for a shot straight at him. It was impressive. I mean, you can't really say a lot. Probably the shortest answer you're going to get off me unless you stitch me up with all these.
Well, you don't know who's coming. I may be sticking to the list. Who knows? But no, I am. Just remind me if I do go off it at all. He won. I did win a couple of titles. That was obviously with Chelsea before he joined us. Now, Kate, right back. I actually like this guy. Sorry?
Me too.
Yeah, and I was I mean, look, he was replaced by Danny Simpson, who we'll come to in a second. But Richie Delat, he actually won a promotion with. Was it a promotion? He won something with Middlesbrough, and I think he won promotion with them, and won a Premier League medal with us because he played enough games. And I don't know how I was talking to the other day, but I think it was Wayne. I mean, I remember his tackle and over the top ball for Jamie Vardy in the 5-3 win against Man United.
You just took my answer out of my voice. Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Sorry, carry on, Kate.
No, that's what I was going to say. That's the biggest memory of him for me, is that because he almost ran over Juan Mata, didn't he? Yeah. He literally bulldozed him like a tractor and, sprinted and, provided that over the ball top. For Vardy as well. It was just absolutely brilliant. I really like watching him. I think he got quite a bad injury, didn't he? Didn't he get his ACL or something like that? Yeah. And real shame. But I always really liked him. I thought he gave everything. I thought he was quite a exciting player to watch as well, actually. And I would argue in my sentiment and how I feel it in my head, he was probably a bit better than Danny Simpson, but maybe that was just me. He was certainly more agile and had a lot more strings to his bow, but maybe not some of them so good as what Danny had. But I really like Richie. He was great. And that 5-3 will live long in the memory. I think most of us can remember almost every minute of that game. Because it was just so...
He also scored the goal in that famous comeback against Villa.
Yeah.
In the title goal, on the goal line, didn't he?
Yeah. Great player. Really good player.
Yeah, I all right. Look, we're going to talk about Danny Simpson now, but he played for Villa, Melbourne in Australia, and Royal Antwerp in his home country. Apparently now plays Masters football. But yeah, I liked him. I was, but obviously he was dropped for Mr. Danny Simpson, who people think different things about Danny Simpson. Craig, and in an attempt not to sort of take any limelight off you, I'll just say over to you, Craig.
Well, I've got to say, I was a fan of Richie Delat as well. I thought he was a good player. But what I would say is, Danny Simpson is, you know, people talk about Ranieri, and I think Brad's got Ranieri at the end, I think.
Yes.
People talk about Ranieri that he didn't really do a lot. You know, he just came in, took Pearson's team and just didn't do anything. But one of the things he did do was bring Danny Simpson in after the 5-2 home defeat against Arsenal to replace Richie Delat. And I think that, along with Kante, who we'll talk about later, was one of the key reasons we went on to win the league. Because for me, he's one of the most underrated players in that whole team. And that season, it was the best, I know it's a bit niche, but the best back post defender I've ever seen, I think. The number of times that he came in round that back post and headed balls away and cleared things. And I think the genius about Ranieri after that 5-2 game was realising that you don't need a fullback who's going to go up and overlap Riyad Mahrez. It's pointless. What you need is someone who knows his limitations, knows that he's a defender, and will do the defensive duties first. And that's what you got. That back four was unbelievable that season. And Danny Simpson was a real part of it. And he didn't go and get in the way of Riyad. You know, there's no point, you know, making overlapping runs and saying, Riyad, give me the ball, because you just got the ball to Riyad. And then Danny Simpson did what he needed to do. I thought he was, as I say, so underrated when people talk about players in that team. But that one season, I thought he was absolutely fantastic for us.
And a bit like Robbie Savage, get the ball, but then just give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know? Apparently, he's now trying his hand at boxing.
Yeah, I think he did that before. I think he's. He looks the same age. You know, I think we may have aged like a decade, but I don't think he has. You know,
No.
And, I know he came back and he's played for a few other clubs, and he came back and trained with us to try and keep his fitness up, because I know the following season he didn't really keep his place. But it was one of those perfect moments when he got in that team and just solidified that back four for us.
Indeed. Brad, a gentleman who it says here, and I'll question this again, whose final touch in professional football was a header to clear his lines in the final at Wembley. I don't remember that, but 2 words. Again, is a Leicester great, Wes Morgan.
Yeah, Wes Morgan is up there in the discussion of your rough and tumble legends of the club with Steve Walsh and Taggart and Elliott. Not a Virgil van Dijk in terms of his flair and his pace or anything like that, but everything everything he lacked that you'd want in that aspect, he had in abundance in the other. A club legend. He's always shitting on the red side of the track, so that's even better. And it's a little one-up on Nottingham just to have that in the bag. But obviously, talk about his defensive partner, his protege, if you will, next to him. But he was just phenomenal, and he kind of laid that foundations in the earlier seasons that he was with us, because we kind of took a chance on him. If you know his story, obviously Nottingham Forest, a coach actually took his chance on him. The manager didn't want him, and we took a chance on him. He was one of them, a bit like Cooper this season, that instantly, I play for Nottingham Forest, scum, getting rid of him, completely forgetting that we'd had players that had come from Forest before or managed Forest, or people have short memories, and he was just never ever shirked his responsibility. He could bulldoze anybody if he had 10 yards head start, but still he did it, and he put his body on the line quite literally in that season. And we all remember Old Trafford, don't we? That nearly got me in trouble, bless him, but that was a great moment at the Theatre of Dreams to go and back a goal there. That was brilliant for him as well.
Yeah, and that was a very good point, Brad, that I was going to mention. You got the guests got their own back. Yeah, everybody loves Wes Morgan, and yet we didn't necessarily go against Steve Cooper because he was a bad manager before we got him, because he was at Nottingham Forest. I mean, fans' mentality sometimes. Interesting thing is, Kate, I was reading that Wes Morgan was good because of who he had next to him. Whether you will agree with that or not, I don't know. But the guy that he had next to him, of course, was Robert Huth.
Yeah. Oh, what a personality. I mean, even now when he tweets things from time to time, he's always the comedian. Signing this big German from Stoke, and I've just read he's got the most ever appearances for a German player in the Premier League, which is pretty outstanding.
Wow.
I think we'll all remember that free kick that I think went out for a corner. And then I think we'll also remember that famous piece of commentary that said, if you're just joining us, Leicester are 2-0 up and Robert Huth is on a hat-trick. Now, the commentary that I just don't think we'd ever thought we'd hear. And I got Instagram late that day. I was sat in the home end because I couldn't get an away ticket. And I had struggled to get in because the ticket booths were crap, and we missed the first couple of minutes, and we just heard this roar from the away end, and we were like, I think something's happened. So we quickly went through to our seats, and we could see we were 1-0 up, and we just missed the goal. But that was a phenomenal performance from the team. And like you said there, I think they were so good. Independently, they weren't excellent and outstanding, and we probably had better defenders. But as a partnership, they just knew their limitations so well and played within them all the time and played simple passes, never took a risk unnecessarily, and just really connected with each other and complemented each other. And it's something that we're really missing right now. You could argue that with perhaps, Vestergaard might be on par with, say, Huth in terms of ability, perhaps, or better than, but he's not got a partner, and everybody needs a partner. It's the most key partnership in a team, I think. But yeah, what a character. Yeah,
you did make me laugh with that corner. I think we all remember that, don't we?
I think he said, I think I'm going to come off free kicks for a while, lads. I think that was his tweet straight after it. He just,
I mean, he was back, wasn't he, as loans manager? Yeah. But I think that he's now moved on from that as well. Look, the next one that should have been up, and I couldn't give this to you, Craig, was Wasilewski, because I know that you wanted to talk so much. Your love for this next guy was so great that you tried to put him in our worst ever 11 ever, and that was Mr. Johan Benaloon.
The best song. I mean, that's his legacy. One of the best songs ever. Johan Benaloon.
Claudio's first signing.
Hey, not only that, I don't know if you knew this when he left.
Not a lot of people know this.
Martin O'Neill's first signing at Forest.
Was he?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't realise it was his first signing.
Yeah. 4 sub appearances he made in the Prem. 4 games. And it's interesting. I wonder if anyone knows whether he got a medal. Because I did look this up. You're supposed to play 5 games.
I was there. Yeah.
Were you?
I did.
Remember on the video, when they're doing the presentations.
Because apparently the rules are you get 40 medals to give out. So that's to players, staff, whoever. As long as everyone who played 5 games gets one, you can do whatever you want with the rest. So
the club paid for the privilege of some extra medals. I believe that even happened to a few other players that didn't quite meet the criteria. But I remember because I was working that game, which was the best thing ever, I have to say. And I was there, and it felt like the crowd was over us. And when you saw him on the screen getting handed a medal, I just looked at the crowd, and everybody in the crowd was doing the same. They're like, huh? I almost felt like someone woke up that morning and went, oh shit, we better ring him, get him over here for his medal, because he just turned up out of nowhere. It was brilliant.
My memories of it, apart from the song, which once that comes back, it's in your head for the day. I can attest to that from sorting this out this morning. My memories of him, though, were for 2 challenges. So one was in a pre-season friendly against Burton, where he 2-footed some guy from about 10 yards away. And one of the few times where the referee told the bench to get him subbed, otherwise he would get sent off. It was horrific. And you can find that on YouTube. You can go away, find
Really?
that Ulloa versus Burton pre-season friendly.
I think he was
And then
very
the other
well
one-
liked, wasn't he? He was a really well liked member of the team. Like he was
'Cause
always
I think-
the joker. With
Yeah,
the
back
team.
in the day as well, the players liked him, a great part of the squad. And back in the day, fans wanted players who would give everything, and weren't, the most cultured defenders or footballers. And as long as you gave everything and you gave one to the opposition if you could, then they'd like you. And the other challenge was, again, you can find this, was like a knee in the back to Olivier Giroud at Arsenal. It was all about to cut him in half. Both challenges are available online. I suggest you go and look them. If you don't know who Ben...
me of a Huth challenge. A Huth challenge was pulling Marouane Fellaini's hair.
Yes, yeah, it was. Did he get sent off or banned for it as well,
He
though,
got
didn't he?
banned for it, didn't he?
Yeah. But, that was Ben Ulloa, went on and played in the World Cup. And
Well, he actually played the 2 Champions League quarter-final legs.
Yeah.
A bit like Luke Thomas. I think it was a bit like we'd have been fucked without him because he was down. We were down to him and there was nobody underneath him.
Yeah. But, yeah. Just
Do you think he was one of those players, Craig, that suffered because look, you could literally pick that team week in, week out, couldn't you? There was no injuries or no suspensions. And do you think he suffered like a lot of players because of that? Are you just not able to break into a winning team?
Well, I don't think anywhere he went, he was a regular all the time, to be honest, because I think he was just a bit too rash, and he was like the Wout Farce of his day, I would say.
Don't make Chris
Your best friend. Don't read the BBC this week, by the way, Craig.
No.
You won't like it. You won't like
Well,
it.
he had a good game for Belgium. Anyway, he, but yeah, he just, he was one of those that you brought on when you needed the place shoring up, like we had Vasilevsky as well, who I know we're going to talk about. But you had your main centre halves. What you needed then was a bench that you could rely on, and who would come in, do a job, and do all the dirty work. And Ben Ulloa was like that, as was Vasilevsky.
And I've got to say, before we move on to Vasilevsky, the thing I remember most about Huth and Morgan was how many times they were holding on to the opposition player. You just would not get away with that these days, would you?
Old school, hard boys, really.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Bring it back.
Brad, do you like eating glass?
No, I'm not a fan of it myself personally. Cuts the gums.
Well, Marcin Vasilevsky apparently does. Look, let's be honest with you. Nobody wants to meet him down a dark alley at 2:00 on a Saturday night.
I met him on a stroll at 11 o'clock across my local park and I've been shitting myself.
Yeah. It says here, a take no prisoners centre half. Well,
I think he took them to prison. He'd be a warden, wouldn't he? Jesus Christ. If you needed a player in a game at any point to give the fear of God into people, an attacking striker, someone of Aguero's build, who was you just bouncing off him if you hit him. So that was what it needed. And I think that was like the little side dish compliment to Morgan and Huth, because sometimes I think we averted to a back three. I know he played probably predominantly more in the Great Escape season, but he was used throughout as well in his time in the season. He's just, it was a compliment to the back line. You had your old school shirt pullers, hair pullers, ear pullers, whatever they were pulling, it was working for them. And then you just had someone that made you go boo, and you'd shriek. You didn't want to go near him. He was horrible. You behave, Chris. You grow up. I'm
a child. I know. I'm a child. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We all are. But yeah, you just needed that, and he was a leader of sorts, not as a captain or anything like that, but he could lead you to believe in anything. If he told you if you was to jump 10 yards forward, you'd score a goal, and looked at his face telling you that, you go, yes, sir. And you try and jump 20 yards forward to score a goal. It was just, that was like that key component in that defensive structure.
My memory of him is giving away the free kick. Yeah, he's giving away the free kick in the second Arsenal game.
Yeah, but we beat Leicester twice trophy for that, wasn't it? It's a bit gutting, that.
Yeah.
And he had the best chant as well, Wazleski. Like, you put your big pole in, your big pole out, in, out, you shake it all about. You do the Wazleski and you turn around. That's what it's all about.
Have I suddenly transcended into a carry-on film here? Or what?
That chant. Oh, the Wazleski.
You keep your poles to yourself. Down, Brad. Down, boy. Down. I've got nowhere to go after that. I'll quickly move it on, Kate. Do you like the Eagles?
Ish, yeah. My parents are big fans.
Well, you know, with the Hotel California, you sign in and you can never leave. That was Christian Fuchs at Leicester, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was Rolls Royce, to be honest. I thought, you know, when we see what we've had in that position before and since, he was just class. Like, his no look pass that he did. He was so reliable. He had a really big personality off the pitch, and then launched his own No Fuchs Given clothing line.
I've got one.
He dedicated a lot to Leicester City and sacrificed a lot, because his wife and very small children lived in America, and he was here for, I don't know how many years he did in the end, but he was here for a number of years, and it was a big sacrifice. And I think he just wanted the Leicester dream to last as long as possible. And he was a great servant. I always felt off the pitch, he looked almost a bit disruptive, because he was always playing practical jokes. He obviously covered Ranieri in drink, you know, when we'd won that time, like he was that one, and Ranieri looked so mad. But on the pitch, he was just such a professional, and a big key part of that left-sided play, really, to be honest.
And I was going to say something then. I've absolutely forgotten. Oh, yeah. One of my memories of him, and obviously he's now assistant manager to Dean Smith at Charlotte FC in the States. Do you remember that time when they were doing the egg challenge at Leicester?
Yes.
Do you remember that? Was it they had to pass it on the head or something? And
I can't remember now.
There was a pack of eggs, and one of they're all hard boiled apart from one.
Yeah.
And he did it with I think he did it with Kante, didn't he?
I don't know who he did it with, but yeah. Just such a practical joke all the time.
I remember him for his football as well. Let me just say that, you know. Craig, the grass is not always greener, is it?
It's not, is it, Mr. Drinkwater?
Yes.
I mean,
only stuck to that.
Yeah, 35 appearances in the Premier League season. Whatever you think of him, in my mind, you know, in his decision making that he made for that season, again, he was just phenomenal. You know, he, like Simpson, like a lot of the team, he knew his limitations. He knew what he was good at. You know, he obviously thought, you know, subsequently that he was even better than that, which was proved wrong. But the number of times that he didn't complicate things, he just got the ball played into him and he wouldn't look almost. He knew Vardy was going to be running in behind into space and he would just put the ball over the top. And he did those simple things so well. And he was phenomenal for us. And when you think we bought him from Man U for an undisclosed fee, no one would have heard of him at all. And he was so integral to that centre of the mid. And you know, again, whatever you think of him, it put £35 million into the coffers. You know, which still, you know, going back almost 8 years when he left, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For a player who had limitations.
And the big profit we made on him as well, didn't we?
Exactly. Yeah. You know, let's not forget he got 3 England caps as well on the form that he showed for Leicester. You know, so I can say, whatever you think of him after, you know, post Leicester, while he was here, he gave everything and he played with his heart on his sleeve. And, you know, those players what this team is lacking. You know, we don't want to go on to now, but players who walked out on the pitch and gave everything for the shirt because they had their own pride in their own performance, you know, and they wouldn't let that drop. Whatever was going on around them, they had a pride in the performance, and Danny Drinkwater epitomised that. And again, a fantastically underrated player in that team for me.
I was thinking about him when I was sort of preparing this show, and I think I may have brought him up in the not as one of the worst 11, but I think we had a disagreement on how good we both thought he was. And looking back, has anybody, and I'm going to say this made me think, because I have done this, left a job that they were really good at and were enjoying because they thought they could earn some more money elsewhere, and then that falls absolutely flat and goes wrong. And that's all he did. That's all he did was change jobs, and the new job didn't work out. So, you know, it was unfortunate, but we love him for what he did at the club. But Brad, I don't. Well, I think I did say this at some point. Was it the fact that he played with Kante, who we're going to ask you about, who, like, you know, Lord Jesus Christ and what have you? Did he make Drinkwater look better than he actually was?
He made every single one of them players look better than they were. That, let's face it, probably barring Mahrez as a very pushing example of someone he didn't make look better than what he did. I mean, that Man City run will live forever in a moment, won't it? The way he just skipped past everybody, jumped over the legs. I mean, you're talking about a man who got offered a mini and turned around and went, "No, I've just run to the training ground. You're right, mate. I'm fine. Right? 24 miles, nothing." The guy's just so wholesome, and it's, you know, it was almost like, you know, the loving side of the game that you needed in him. He's such a persona, such a personality, and you know, everybody played their own part and had their role in it. But Kante was just a different breed, and out of all the players that have left us in the past, that you may have wished success or may have wished ill upon, Joel, you know, this man, that man there, we could not have wished for more success in his career after Leicester. Look, the way he left, I know people still get about it. Yeah, but you're just a sour old man. At the end of the day, that was the deal that got him to Leicester, that he had a release clause and Chelsea could come and match it. Emil Heskey, you know, everybody forgets Emil Heskey had a bid of 12 million from Tottenham that they turned down. Liverpool came in at 11 million and he went, "Well, that's my club I wanted to go to. You said I could go there," and Leicester had to accept it. Yeah. Kante did at least come out that season and go, I think Chelsea initially put in a bid of 25 million and he turned around and went, "Out of respect to Leicester, I'm not going for Leicester my release clause. So if Chelsea don't pay that release clause, I will stay at Leicester." So people maybe need to think on that fact a little bit.
I don't know again how true this was. I mean, let's be honest with you, there's so many rumours or what have you in football. But was he originally a Pearson signing, or when we first approached him, Pearson was in charge? And then Pearson was sacked, and he actually had second thoughts about coming.
Well, yeah, I think that's what deterred him away at first, because he was spoken to Pearson. And I believe, actually, I could not recall the name of the player that we was going to get. I think it was actually someone we signed later on. In fact, it just came to me. It could be true, this. I think originally Ranieri was going to sign Napoli's Mendy, but they got swayed to go after Kante after Chelsea kind of went a bit ice cold on the idea. And then he got really told, look, we had this guy through the door. He was going to sign. He's now been turned away by Chelsea. They're on and on. Let's get him now and strike a deal. And what a deal. I'd pay it and lose him for 30 million every single time if we got to relive what we did that season, Chris.
What was the famous quote by Ranieri? You'd expect him to pass the ball, then run along and catch it at the other end as well.
Yeah, but he honestly could have, Chris. He honestly could have.
Do you ever think though, Brad? And I do always think this with Kante. I don't at all have any mither with him going, because fair play, and they paid the release clause and stuff. But that's my only what if with that period of time. If he'd have stayed, could we have really got to the Champions League final?
that would have been an interesting one because
I always what if with that.
Yeah, because we had our
Riyad
chances as well.
Riyad was another year, and I just what would have happened with that?
Yeah, I just think the fact that when we kind of did the first part and not messed it up, but we sat Pearson so it put him off us. I think the fact that his agent almost had him in Stamford Bridge made him go, okay, they're going to sign you, prove them how good you are. We'll get a deal in place with Leicester. I think it was beyond our control. I don't think.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like the rest of the contracts that got renewed for the fancy cars. I think Kante literally
he has won a lot in his little life.
It would have been nice, okay.
Well, not from his perspective, but just being from a Leicester fan perspective.
Yeah, I do think he could have at least got us there, couldn't he? Because against Atletico Madrid, I think he'd have had fun against that sort of caliber of players as a result of his career.
There was another famous quote, wasn't there? That I think Steve Walsh, the guy who brought so many great players to the club, when asked about the midfield for that season, he said it was easy, really. He says, we just played Drinkwater in the middle and Kante either side of him.
Yeah. I mean, first player, was he? No, not the first player, but he won, obviously, Premier League titles at two different clubs, us and Chelsea. Player of the Year. He lifted the World Cup with France. I think he got the Champions League, possibly, I'm not sure, with Chelsea. But look, Kate, the club legend, he's come back. You could just do a whole show on this next guy. The only person that's won the third tier, the second tier, and the first tier titles at the same club. Mr. Andy King, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nigel Pearson said such a heartwarming tribute to him at the end of last season when he retired. He just said he's one of the easiest players to coach. He loved bringing him on. He just had everything that you'd want from a professional footballer, really, really hardworking. Scored some really important goals for us, particularly in the Championship. I think he was top scorer, wasn't he? And yeah, just a delight. And it was just a shame in a way that he didn't quite cut it at Premier League level. He did enough to help us out, obviously, where we were needed, but just an absolute legend. And when he came back last season with Bristol, you know, he was really emotional at the end of that game, going around clapping the crowd, and he was crying. It was just so emotional for him to be back. And you don't get many Andy Kings, and it's just so lovely and telling that he's now come back as a coach. You know, I know his family is still in Leicestershire, but he's a Bristol boy, and it's lovely to see that he wanted to come back. We've made a role for him, and long may that continue, because I think the impact he can have, particularly on the youth, we signed him as a real young lad, is one of our own really in that regard. And I hope that can really start to pull some of our youngsters through and see what you can do if you put your mind to it. He's just an example. Him and Vardy, in a way, are an example where work ethic can get you, and good, strong work ethic, even if you're not the most talented in the team or in the squad at that moment in time. Just keep persevering, and you never know what can happen.
No, indeed. And a lovely guy off the pitch. I'm sure, you know, not just me, a lot of fans have obviously met him and what have you, sort of, you know, outside the stadium, what have you. Always have time for everybody. Absolutely lovely man. Craig, another one that I had to put aside just for you and take out of order, because I know, you know, you could. If Benalunan wasn't sort of enough for you, talk us about somebody else you tried to get in. In fact, it might have been this one that you tried to get into our team, Mr. Goklan Inler, the world-class midfielder.
Yeah, 3 appearances, 2 sub-appearances during the season. And I've written some notes here. Just such a real disappointment. You know, I remember being so excited that we were going to sign him. You know, Swiss captain. Looked to be exactly what we needed, this sort of all-round busy player in the middle of the field, getting on the ball but could play. And it just didn't work, did it? It didn't work because I think he never got to grips with the pace of the English game. Lost his place to Kante, and as we know, the rest is history. His greatest contribution was giving up his place to Kante, really.
He was an international captain, wasn't he?
Exactly. I think it was just that change of pace that he really didn't get to grips with. And I think I've written here, in normal circumstances, if this team wasn't such a tight-knit team with so few injuries, he would have got another chance. He would have got a few games here and there to allow him to get to the pace of the game. But once that team was set, it was like glue, and no one was getting injured. I think we used the least number of players ever. So there was no way of forcing your way back into that team. And I think that just put pay to all the opportunities that he had. Kante was indestructible, so you weren't getting back in. He went to Besiktas, I think, at the end of the season, and he's now technical director at Udinese in Italy. And maybe, there may be a job going as a technical director. I don't know if he wants to come back.
I think they'd have my dad, and he's dead, as technical director over certain people that are currently in the job.
But he looked like he was going to be a great signing. It's just one of those that didn't work out. He's not the only one. Adrian Silva was the same. So excited. Then he, the whole debacle with not getting this signing. But when he got into the team, the pace of the game just passed him by.
But do you think the fact that he didn't play regularly, and all right, you're not going to drop Kante for him unless he's injured or suspended. So, but had he played more, he would have had a better chance, therefore, of getting used to these.
So. I think so, because you don't become a bad player. No. As we've seen, this team is all about average players with one or two little bits of glitz and glamour in terms of Riyad and special players. 90% of this team were run-of-the-mill players. And it just shows you that it's about chemistry. It's about getting the right players who just know their job and all fitting together. And as long as you've got a couple of stars you can sprinkle in. And Gökhan was a great player at the time. He was a really landmark signing. But, once you're out of that team...
about Ibora as well.
Yeah, exactly. Some players, if you're like a Bergkamp or an Henry at Arsenal, you're allowed time because you're surrounded by great players. In our team, you have to hit the ground running, and if you don't, someone else is going to do the job. And I think he would have come on and been a decent player, but he just wasn't to be. And at the end of it, I don't think any of us are saying he should have been given more time, because the history speaks for itself. And he went back to, I think he was half Turkish, half Swiss, went to Turkey and had a decent
career. 2 titles in Turkey, in fact.
Yeah.
Run-of-the-mill players, Brad. Talking of which, leads us very nicely into the next one. Who, in Dave's absence, I'm going to let you have a rant about. I can't believe this guy was actually with us for 7 years until we got relegated last time. The man, the myth, the legend that is Mr. Daniel Amati.
Yeah, he played well in African Cup of Nations, didn't he, though? That's about as memorable as it gets for him. And jack of all trades, not very good at any of them, really. and kind of too dissimilar to what Craig was saying about not getting a chance to play. We didn't really give him a chance to settle into a position, did we? I know he predominantly played right back, but he was signed as a CDM. And obviously, in the early days of his career, he was never going to get in them positions with who we had playing there. And even in years gone by, prime Wilfred Ndidi wasn't getting knocked out of the team. So he was kind of like centre back, which was the weirdest role he ever played for us. He just, he's Dave's favourite, so I have to give him some nice words, don't I? God loves a trier. That's what I'll say about him. And I suppose the one thing you can say is, he never shirked his responsibility. He might not have been very good at it, but he never shirked his responsibility on the pitch, and he always gave 100%. And infamously, I guess, not famously, but infamously remembered for the old Chelsea. Chelsea, I was about to say Chelsea tossed them, but that sounded wrong. The old Chelsea, whatever it was, single he threw, discarded onto the dressing room in the final. It's probably the highlight of his Leicester career, sadly.
I think the thing that I remember about him, he was probably actually about 15, but looked about 65.
Yes, he did. He did look like he should have been running for prime minister of a country in his late 60s. But yeah, look, he tried. He wasn't really settled in a position. And every time he seemed to get a position, we'd sign Ricardo as a right back or Wilfred as a CDM. So it wasn't entirely on him that he couldn't settle into the squad.
Now, Kate,
he also was under there.
Yeah, Kate. In the Championship, I actually preferred this guy to Danny Drinkwater. And I thought he was the better of the two, if I'm honest with you. Opinions, Craig, opinions. But talk to us. He didn't get a game in this season, so there's not much you can say about him. And it was unfortunate because his career was blighted by injury. But Mr. Matty James.
First of all, I always look forward to seeing Matty James play because he is a feast for the eyes, Matty James. Me and my girl mates would go down. Very much looking forward to watching Matty play. Another Man United.
Does Alan Shearer know this?
But yeah, another Man United reject, I suppose they would call it, in that we've managed to sign him for Man United. And then, yeah, I think he was the preferred option with Nigel with Danny Drinkwater. And then, obviously, really sadly, coming to the end of that 14-15 season, he ruptured his ACL. And we didn't really get to see him again fully. And I always feel, rightly or wrongly, that Matty James was almost a bit of our sliding doors moment in terms of winning the league. Because if he would have been first choice, absolutely, going into that 15-16 season. And it's one of those sliding doors moments that when his door closed, Danny Drinkwater's opened. And we were able to push on like we did. And it's just one of those things. And then, obviously, he followed Nigel to Bristol and was there with Andy King at Bristol for a while. I think now he's at Wrexham. So I look forward to the next Wrexham documentary, which I watch quite regularly. I'm sure he'll feature in that as well. But yeah, still going, still playing a decent level of football. And it was just a real shame. It's always what ifs with those players because he was a very able player and capable player before his injury, and sometimes that can just blight you, can't it?
Indeed. It's a great shame for him. We wish him all the best. And good luck at Wrexham. Craig, if you had a battle for the best free signing ever made by any club anywhere in the world, I think we could probably have the top two, because I'm probably going to be totally wrong here, but I think, was Christian Fuchs a free signing?
I feel like he might have been, yeah.
I think he might have been.
Yeah. But when it comes to free signings, I mean, this guy, head, shoulders, and a step ladder above everybody else, Mr. Mark Albrighton.
Yeah, 34 appearances plus 4 sub appearances, 2 goals, total 303 appearances for the club, 19 goals. And not prolific in any ways in terms of goals. 44 assists, but the big thing about Mark was never less than a 7 out of 10, I would say. Mark Albrighton, and for me, because of that, he's classed as a legend. He hasn't got the goals or this, that, and the other, but the fact that this was a guy who bled claret and blue. He was a Villa fan. And to be let down, I think, by Villa in terms of not giving him a new contract, he could have felt sorry for himself, but he came to Leicester and he became Leicester. He became a Leicester fan as much as a Leicester player. He didn't keep harking back at, I'm a Villa fan. I always look for Villa's results or whatever. He was a Leicester player. And that's all he ever talked about, being a Leicester player. And the fact that he went on to score our first ever goal in the Champions League, and then that goal against Seville that took us to the quarterfinals. I mean, that's enough for legendary status. He was just proud to be a Leicester player and gave it all. And such a likable bloke as well. Yeah. People say that nice guys come last, but this was a proof that they don't always. And a class act, Mark Albrighton, and. Yeah, I don't know anybody who couldn't like Mark Albrighton, to be honest.
Even towards the twilight of his career at Leicester, when he was a sub, I mean, there was the crowd. It just got the crowd up when they could see him warming up and he was coming on. He could always get across it.
And you never heard any stories about him whinging in the background that he wasn't playing, this, that, and the other. Just a proper old-fashioned pro almost. and maybe one of the last old-fashioned pros, these days who everybody wants everything doing for. It wouldn't surprise me if he cleaned his own boots, to be honest, Mark Albrighton.
Brad, 2 words. Sorry, Brad.
I was just saying he actually still does commentary on Leicester games as Albrighton.
He does,
Well, I know, and I'm sure there's a few people aware that there's a big sort of charity game going on at Anstey Nomads, with a lot of these are players who are playing in the summer. Will be playing down at Anstey Nomads, so it is an opportunity to go and see.
Craig Shawbridge's team.
I'm not sure, but I know Huth's playing. I think Albrighton, Danny Simpson, a lot of those players. So we've already got tickets to go and see that. So I'm looking forward to seeing a few of these guys.
2 words to you, Brad. And the second one's off. No, it's not. 2 words to you. The second one is Mahrez. The first one is Riyad. Take it away.
I mean, for free, Mark Albrighton's the best free signing you're going to get. But the ludicrous amount, little money we spent we invested in Riyad Mahrez is absolutely criminal. We robbed the footballing world blind. I mean, this is a guy that had everything stacked against him. Even the French, and they give up. But they were saying he's too small, he's too nimble, he's not, he's not strong enough, he's not this. He couldn't get into any of the first division French sides. No one would have a look at him. He was playing for Le Havre, and I believe they were in Ligue 1 at the time. They were in the second division. And he still wasn't breaking. Thank you. I didn't take French, so thanks for that. And he still couldn't really break into their team. Really, he was struggling, and his passion ran throughout every interview you ever heard him say, and even to this day, is he just wants to play football. Well, let me play football. I want to play football. I'll go and play it on an AstroTurf pitch. I'll go and play it on a 6-a-side, 5-a-side. I just wanted to play football. He finished school. He got a ball out of his bag, dribbled home, and he goes to the park. And he just abundant talent. We had Cambiasso. We've had legends come to this club for a season here and a season there. But this guy, credit to him. Kate asked the what if about Kante. Well, we at least got to see that with Mahrez, didn't we? We saw what he had to offer the world. And yes, he had the old hissy tiff, but he came back, didn't he, Chris? He apologised. He came back with his tail between his legs and got on with it. And I still remember that goal against Bournemouth where he bent it around about 8 players and still put it in the bottom corner. I mean, that transfer rumour that went round in the summer, I was begging and pleading for it to be true. When that little last dance came up, I was like, please, it's not going to happen. Please let this one Twitter rumour be true, but it wasn't to be. But by my God, if there is a player on that team whose entire career at Leicester, from Premier League to his time that he left, could be put on a DVD and watched over and over again, it's definitely his. And it's so funny, Chris, because his career looked to be going as he was proven in the French division because he was brought in the Championship. And I think whereas some other players like we've mentioned with Inler and Benalou who didn't get a chance to settle, he was fortunate that he had the chance to mature and grow and settle in the Championship behind forgotten man Anthony Knockaert. Who was the first choice during the first season and a half that he was in the Championship with us. That's when he started to shine, then. And like I said, the rest you could put on a DVD and it'd be. I was getting quite excited the thought about Mahrez and Knockaert playing together. Yeah. I mean, especially when Knockaert's doing scorpion kicks against Huddersfield to grab a double and win us a game. You think, God, him on the left and him on the right. We was winning the quadruple. We were all becoming Liverpool fans. It was our year. We was going to win everything. And then obviously, the wheels sort of fell off in Knockaert, or maybe everybody just went, "Fuck me," when they watched Mahrez, because the way some people speak about him, who coached him, who found him, who scouted him, said it was like Ronaldo at Sporting being scouted. Well, not scouted. It was the players that did it. But it was the same sort of feeling. They just looked at him and went, "This kid's got it." And wow,
totally,
what a player!
Totally. Now, if anybody wants to go and walk the dog because we're going to have a long discussion about a player, I think this is it, because I know that Kate is just going to have so much to say about this player that's coming up now. It's the guy that I actually wrote on social media once. Oh my God, help us! They're bringing Schlupp on, and I hadn't even actually pressed the send button, and he scored a goal. Talk about, when they say things like, well, that lasted well, but 9 times out of 10 his shots went into row double Z. But look, he was with us. There was rumours about him coming back in the summer or January. Jeff Schlupp, Kate.
Yeah, I mean, a product of our academy. I don't think from a footballing perspective, as far as seeing somebody on the pitch, I've ever seen a more capable athlete. I often thought he belonged on a track, and it wouldn't surprise me if he would have probably definitely ran sub 10.1, if not 10.05, sub 100, because he was just a phenomenal. But to see him run and his fitness, and he was actually quite exciting to watch. I mean, over time you kind of thought, yeah, his shot's going to go row Z or whatever it was. Like, his end product wasn't particularly good, but he gave his all. He had some key substitutions for us. He was okay cover. Even if he messed up times at the back, he could definitely get back and rectify his mistakes. He was just so fast. And he wasn't really a player that fitted in with what we wanted at the time. So I was really chuffed to see that he actually had a really good career at Palace, and he's now at Celtic, isn't he? I think so. He's just, he's one of those for the archives in that, good old Jeff, always put a shift in. Wasn't the most talented, but flipping heck, he was fast. He was so unbelievably fast.
He was what we would call a squad player, Kate.
Yeah, absolutely. He's like bringing his step when he came on. Like, he honestly, the athlete in him was phenomenal. Absolutely.
He's become a verb in our household. That if you sky one into the crowd, you've schlupped it.
Yes.
It did.
Yeah, so
I still
over Perez.
Yeah, I didn't think at the time. When you've been schlupped.
Exactly, but as you're saying, Kate, he came on and made some telling contributions. Getting fouled against West Ham for Ulloa to take that last penalty. It was Schlupp who got fouled.
That was a brilliant dive into the box. I loved it. It's the most excited we got about him in the box.
And yet, when Griezmann did it for Atletico Madrid, we weren't happy, were we?
No. But I remember going to the Chelsea away game the season after, and it was almost the start of the decline. It was almost the start of players running forward and then passing the ball backwards, because he did it every time he got the ball. He just ran forwards, came up against the defender, thought, nah, I'll just pass it back. And he did it the whole game. He was awful. But again, you need squad players.
FA Cup winners medal, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's somehow got an FA Cup winners medal.
Talking of squad players, Craig.
Yeah.
Another player who is at the same team, actually, is N'Golo Kante. I'm sure that some of their fans get the two of them mixed up. They're so similar in their playing styles. But a player that I hoped so much for, and every time we kind of brought him on as a sub, he seemed to do well. So you'd start him and he'd have a shit game, and then it would go repeat. But if nothing else, he is remembered for the goal against Cardiff. After the tragedy with Vichai and the helicopter, and that's a Mr. Demarai Gray.
Yeah, you talk about all the good bits then, Chris.
Oh yeah,
that's Craig's notes gone out the window.
Exactly.
Sorry.
I'll take over then, Craig. What's my play?
Anyways, so.
Well, I thought you'd have so much bad to say about him. I thought I'd get the good bits in.
No, I'll start with the end bit, which is, of course, he'll be remembered most for scoring the goal at Cardiff, and holding up the shirt after Vichai died.
I'm getting booked.
Yeah.
Don't forget getting booked.
So, 12 appearances, 11 off the bench in that season. we actually activated a clause ourselves to buy him from Birmingham, 3.7 mil. He looked like he was going to go to a bigger club than us the season before, but nobody actually sort of came in. A few were dancing around the handbags, never picked him up. So I've picked a few words that were all used to describe Demarai Gray. Enigmatic, lazy, mardy, frustrating. I'll be kinder and just say inconsistent, because on his day, he could be a hell of a player, but he just had too few days. There was clearly a talent there, and you know, wherever he's gone, he's had patches, but he just looks like a player who, where you talk about Mark Albrighton is just happy playing football, the antithesis of that was Demarai Gray, who just looked like he would rather be anywhere else apart from playing football. And all this talent, you know, I don't know whether, you know, you look at the likes of Jude Bellingham, who came through the same system, you know, who has taken all of that weight of expectation on his shoulders and used it in the right way to improve his game. And it was almost like Demarai Gray had too much on his shoulders and he shrank, you know, from all that expectation. But it was interesting, something that Danny Simpson said when he was talking about this season, and the fact that Demarai Gray was a fantastic sub to come on, because the number of times he would just get the ball and run into the opposition half, take it in the corner, buy fouls, and so many games he came on and just killed time for them, that they would get the ball to him and he would go and take it away and eat the clock up for them, that he was such an integral part of that team. As he said, 11 sub appearances, only started one game, but they knew they could bring him on and he would do that. That in his own way, he played a massive part in us getting over the line.
Do you think we missed an opportunity when, unlike Bellingham, who you say was similar, that we didn't retire his shirt number when he left?
I think that, Chris, is disgraceful.
I do remember Demarai as well, probably infamously, nearly getting his head chopped off by the helicopter blade. Do you remember that clip? He went to an awards ceremony and he got out of a helicopter in a posh suit, and he walked the wrong way out of the helicopter and had to duck under the blade. Like the guy told him to duck, like he would have honestly got decapitated. There was a big red tape walkway of where you're supposed to walk. It was quite difficult to miss, and he went out of that and nearly fell into the blade's path.
Wow. I didn't know that. If we're going to file somebody under a score a goal and know nothing about it category, Brad, Nathan Dyer.
Yeah, but what a legend. What a legend. No one in this team, Chris, would get themselves knocked out to score a goal. That guy did it, and he's walking around Swansea probably still now swagging around with his winner's medal like this, just like it's allowed to. I mean, we've had some shocking loanees, Edward, but this was one of the best loanees you'll ever get. I mean, we
don't know about Edward. We've never seen him. He may not even exist. He may
I actually think, you know what? I think we're paying £8 million for a figment of our imagination. I think you're right there, Chris.
Yeah.
But honestly, the man scores one goal and it'll be remembered for all time. And the reason being, Chris, is everybody looks back at that season. And we've done shows on this season, and you've asked us this question a lot. And a lot of people say, the moment they thought we'd win the league, or the defining game for us that season was probably when we beat Man City at home in their own backyard. You know, that was a very defining moment. That was probably the first time I uttered the words, we're going to win the league. We're actually going to go on and do this. But if you actually look at the trajectory of that game, and I'm going to talk about it because it's the best moment in Nathan Dyer's career. We just lost his brother Lloyd Dyer. Obviously, had left the season before, so we brought in his stunt double. Same height. I mean, it's close enough, all right. But Villa were on a downward spiral under Tim Sherwood. That should have been the first red flag in not hiring ex-players as a manager. Anyway, and we were obviously on that momentum high. I think it was also just before the Arsenal game where it kind of brought us back down to earth. And we were 2-0 down that game, and obviously we know what happened. We got back level, and Nathan Dyer scored the winner. And not knowing what would happen, if you look back from that point onwards, Leicester never knew when they were beat, and Villa subsequently never knew when the points were safe and kept losing or throwing away throwing away leads and drawing and losing games. It's just weird, it's so weird how had Leicester not come back in that game, would we have then perished into like a mid-table side or a top 6 side at best? You never know how these things change football. And like I said, one little man from Wales threw his head up against Brad Guzan and got knocked out, and the rest, Chris, told its own tale. It's one of the best loanies I've ever had at this club.
You mean the of course, Aston Villa, who were managed by the club legend that was Tim Sherwood?
Oh, yeah. The Sherwood of Nottingham.
Yeah.
It was the Villa of Villa as well, for what it was worth. But yeah, one loanee, one medal. What more can you ask? You put that on his CV.
Exactly. And he'll be, like you say, forever remembered for that goal, which I was determined not to mention too much.
Yeah, you had no chance as soon as you realised that was on it.
Kate, Daka, just after we signed just after we signed Daka, he got 4 goals in a game, and then you could argue he's probably not really scored again since. This gentleman got his hat trick at Bury, obviously in the cup, and got one brief Premier League outing. Dodoo. I mean, I don't know. I think the Dodos lasted longer than he did, didn't they? I mean, tell us about him if you can.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not going to interrupt because I know nothing about this guy.
Oh yeah, now you're quiet and there's nothing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a product of our youth academy, wasn't he? And he looked really exciting. I mean, when he scored that hat trick, we were all, I think we just always fall into that problem, don't we? That we see a young player do reasonably well and you just get carried away that he's going to be the next Andy King. And yeah, sadly it didn't quite work out for him, but I don't know an awful lot about him. I've just seen here that he now plays for Burton, so he's never hit dizzy heights. He was quite quick from what I remember. Yeah, but he played his part. And he'd always
I think we saw the fact that he got a hat trick and we all wanted him to play,
The thing is, he let that go to his head. Yeah, he actually let that hat trick go to his head. I think he scored in the next round against Walsall as well. We then offered him a new contract because the idea was we wanted to propel him into the club, and he then subsequently went quiet on that front, signed for Rangers, and went, "Well, I'm not going to turn down playing for 50,000."
Contract thing,
yeah, and he said, "I'm not going to sign a contract because I've heard Rangers are interested in me, and I'd be stupid to turn down playing in front of 50,000 people." I would like to Wikipedia his career and see if he actually played in front of 50,000 people, because I don't think he.
Well,
maybe in total.
Yeah, Matt in the Leicestershire Live says his career in Glasgow never took off. I mean,
which is ironic because you had to fly there to get to play.
Well, yes. Best £1 million ever spent, Craig, and I will leave it at that. I'm not going to say another word. He's all yours, Mr. Vardy.
My second paragraph says the best £1 million any club has ever spent.
Let me have an introduction.
You need to do homework.
I'm going. I mean, you just don't need me, do you? You know,
I mean, 36 goals. I mean, 36 appearances, 24 goals in that season. I mean, what can you say that hasn't already been said? Most of it by Chris. I'll just list these. The Great Escape season, Vardy was integral to that. The 11-goal run to take the record off Van Nistelrooy, what he wouldn't give for 11 goals now. The Premier League winning, the glut of goals that came with it, the Golden Boot in the 1920 season, 2015-16 Player of the Season, the England goals, Match of the Day goal of the season against West Brom in the 17-18 season, and above all else, the general shithousery that Vardy brings. Vardy is as close to any guy off the terraces playing football at the highest level, who's just made his own dreams come true, and he's made thousands of Leicester fans' dreams come true at the same time. Absolute legend. My earliest memory of him is when he first came to the club, and around the same time that we had Kane on loan, and he looked like he was playing in school shoes, because he was one of the only players who still played in black boots, and he wore this black tape around his ankles. He just looked like he'd come from school. And but when he came to prominence, really, is that 5-3 game that we've talked about already, the Man U game. 1 goal, but he got the 4 assists for the other thing as well, because he got brought down for the 2 penalties, put the cross in for Ulloa, and I can't remember the other. I think he
was never out, by the way.
It wasn't out. It definitely wasn't out. It was the same linesman who did the World Cup in '66. Like that. But just so many amazing goals. Some of the one that he scored where the ball's dropping over his head and he lobs against Spurs. It's just a phenomenal goal. If that was anyone else, it would be shown all the time. He's got so many fantastic finishes, contradicting Michael Owen totally, who said he wasn't a natural goal scorer. I mean, we'd all love him to actually beat him and get higher up the table of Premier League goals. But, I mean, 492 appearances, 198 goals, 69 assists in that as well. Total legend.
What's your favourite Vardy goal?
I was just going to ask that. You take my job over, Kate.
Well, you know what? Obviously, there's the Liverpool one. There is the West Brom one where he watched it over his shoulder. But I think that one against Spurs, where it's a long ball that's come through and he's just taken it on the volley, just looped it over I can't remember the French keeper at Spurs at the time. Lloris. I just think that's a phenomenal piece of skill to be able to get that perfectly. There's probably others that will come to mind.
I love the Great Escape West Brom as well.
Yeah, I was about to say the West Brom.
When he ran from his halfway line.
And this Mohican haircut.
Yeah.
And he, like you say, a man off the terraces. Like he went.
Didn't that make him go faster though?
Absolutely nuts. I don't think he could believe it. No. He must have thought at that time that this is it. This is what it's about.
I'm going to disagree with all of you because I'm going to go for the Liverpool goal.
Yeah, I know. I mentioned that one. Yeah.
I remember. Do you remember the reaction? I think it was on Sky Sports. But it was a midweek game. I think it was a midweek game, wasn't it? It was. And it was on. They've got a different panel, but whoever it was, and I can't remember who it was. Literally, just disbelief at the fact that it had gone in. It never even touched the floor, did it?
And I remember. Managers have said that he's an intelligent player. He looks like he's just come off the terraces, but he's an intelligent guy. And I remember him saying in that game that he'd watched the Liverpool keeper coming off his line a lot of times during the game. So as soon as he knew he had a chance, he was just going to hit it. What a goal. I mean,
2 Liverpool fans that game who managed to get tickets in our end. And these 2 Liverpool guys, they just said afterwards, flipping it, fair play, you're going to absolutely want this league.
You know what? There's
that's the most exciting game I've ever watched, and my team didn't win.
Yeah, it was like, he's one of those players, and there's a few of them. There's a few scattered around football who you hate, but you would love to have on your side. And I'm sure every team would love to have Jamie Vardy in their team.
Yes, totally. Well, Arsenal tried the best, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm going to say before I move on, isn't it ironic that we've got the guy that got 10 in 10, and then we've got the guy that got 11 in 11, and we can't score in 14 or 15? How ironic is that?
Yeah.
They've used them all up, haven't they? Yeah.
This is it. I feel a meme coming on now. Brad, I'm really worried that I'm going to sort of take all your glory here, but I can remember going to the first game of the season because
now, so no one can hear you with your facts. So I can stay them afterwards. Or...
Yeah, thank you. But of course, everybody knows the season before the Great Escape, I'd given up my season ticket, so good timing, eh? And I went, but I did get a ticket for that game, and I was watching this guy that we just signed, and Japanese guy, and I was watching him, and I turned to my son and I said, it's like watching a dog with a bone. He just won't give up. He was absolutely after the... He never stopped. And you can see for the rest of the season, he never played past 60 minutes because he was too knackered. What a great, if you like, foil to Jamie Vardy, and that was Shinji Okazaki.
Yeah, he really was. I mean, you always have a complement in your dynamic duo, don't you? Whether it's doesn't matter what line of work or business it's in, whether it's something like Ant and Deck who complement each other on stage or on the football pitch. It was Jamie Vardy.
You and me, Brad.
Oh, yeah, you could say that. I mean, others would disagree, like
Yeah,
me. But, yeah. But, no, he was such a workhorse. And like you said, no wonder the poor bloke had to come off after 60, 70 minutes. It was knackering watching him. He didn't get many goals. I don't even know if he hit double figures in a season for us. If he did, that's definitely a quiz question. How many times offside Ali Dyer is before you bring that up? But my God, if you needed somebody to, in despair, run back and try and chase someone to get the ball off them for 40, 50 yards. Okazaki was already there. We talk about Kante, but Okazaki was the original that was doing it before it was cool, and Kante was showing it how to do it. You could not ask for a more pleasant bloke either. So wholesome. You could have told him that you've just, crashed into his car, and he'd probably smile at you and say, it's okay, don't worry about it. He was such a lovely guy. I had, working at the club, I had the pleasure of, kind of crossing paths with players and having a little bit of a chat with them if they weren't, in a rush or whatever. And he was so lovely to speak to, and he just proved up on the pitch. And, you don't have to be a Kante and a Mahrez to win our hearts as football fans. You can just have that effort and tenacity and the love for the club that he had. That, a bit like Fuchs didn't really actually want to go in the end when his time came for us to move on and do it. And such a legend to the club to this day, and we'll fondly remember the club. And before you quickly move on, Chris, interesting fact, talking about Kate's hero, Joseph Dodoo, shockingly, he's younger than myself. He's 29, and he's currently playing for Altrincham in the National League tonight. So if you're watching after this game, Joseph, Kate loves you and she thinks you're amazing.
He's also got a football coaching YouTube channel as well.
There you go. There you go.
I didn't like to mention that in case Kate had got that in her notes. I'm be careful what I say now. Kate, I love this next player. Absolutely love him to bits. I bumped into him in I think it's as you leave the ground and you turn right up Ayleston Road, and as if you're going to the motorway, and there's a petrol station on your left. I remember bumping into him there. He was filling up his girlfriend's car, believe it or not, which was a Mini. Leonardo Ulloa.
Yeah, I mean, to think that the song about him was, yes, he cost a fucking fortune. He was 8 million quid. Yeah. And I stand by it now when I say that he is the last good striker that we signed. He is the last good striker that we signed. All the money that we've spent since, and we've not got anybody near what Ulloa provided for us in terms of diversity of what can be offered up front with Jamie. Yeah. I remember his debut at home. It was a beautiful sunshine day against Everton, and he scored, and the crowd just went mad. And then I think what I remember him mostly for is just his calm nature. So he scored in the 1-0 against Norwich. And then he scored that crucial penalty against West Ham. And I genuinely thought at that point, if he doesn't score this penalty, we're going to fluff our lines and not win the league. And he had nerves of steel, that guy. A bit like Yuri, I think, in that term of taking a penalty, just close it all out and always came up with the goods. And I absolutely adored him. I was really sorry when he left. Again, another really nice player. There's a theme here about this team. Really nice, wholesome Leicester City shirt wearers. And that's what he was. And he was just phenomenal and just offered us so much in terms of a target man. And he was really, really good. Loved him a lot.
His ability to just hold the ball up. We've, as you say, Kate, we've never had anybody capable of doing that since, and it's to our regret that we've not. I loved him as well. Yeah,
and obviously he played.
Sorry, Brad.
I was going to say, obviously, the one thing people tend to forget, the West Ham game you're on about there, Kate, Vardy got suspended and was further extended for 4 games, and everybody kind of went, Oh, even the commentator, well, where are the goals going to come from now? And he went on a scoring spree. He hadn't scored for months on end. And then went on a scoring spree. It was like, I remember infamously, it was more shadowed by the Ashley Williams Mahrez thing, but he scored against Swansea. And the commentator went, Jamie Vardy? Who is he? Sort of along them lines. You know, he kind of just...
But that diversification, like having Vardy as the quick, nimble, agile striker, and then Ulloa, who's the height, the target man, amazing with his head, still really technical. Any coaches watching should take note that still works. It produces the goods. Two up top, a big guy, a shorter, quicker guy. It really does produce. And I don't know how we've moved away from that as a football nation and style of football across all clubs.
Well, I mean, we did it for a little bit, didn't we, with Vardy and Nacho, but then we forgot about two up front, didn't we? And of course, we could do it with Edouard, couldn't we, Chris?
This is it.
But Kate, did he make the Earth move for you?
Oh, Leo?
Yeah.
No.
Well, that wasn't it. Where it registered as a.
The earthquake.
Yeah, the Norwich game.
Yeah.
I'll knock them over. You missed the open goals.
That was a pure relief because everything. He just felt like he just didn't want to mess up. Any drop of points or any unexpected, like bad things to happen during a game. You were just so afraid it was going to derail us and kill the momentum that we'd got. The momentum was everything. So when that goal went in, the relief and roar from the stadium was just that. It wasn't rather than celebration. It was elation and relief that had gone in.
Someone said they heard it, didn't they, from like down the road, like down by that corner shop, the studio things. They could hear the celebrations. The roar was like that.
I think you'll know the story, Brad. If not, I think Craig might, as to why we signed him. Because did Pearson ask the defenders who was the worst player that they had to defend against? But that was after that they'd won the title and they were all pissed on the thing, and Brighton had put 4 past us or something.
He absolutely battered us, didn't he? No, sorry, go on, Craig. Go on.
No, you're going to say. I was just going to agree. Yeah, he asked the defenders who the most difficult opponent was, and it was Ulloa. So he went out and bought him.
He scored a double. They went, right, we'll have him then. I like that.
That's a way of doing your business, to be honest, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, Craig. I'm going to keep it very, very short. But I have a feeling that you're going to have this written down anyway. 4 words. The one that got away.
Line 2 of Craig's notes.
We can't see it. Andrej Kramaric, otherwise known as the one who got away.
Have you got a fucking camera in it or what?
Guys, you know when you spoke, when you copy someone's homework and say change the words of it, but Chris, that doesn't mean swap the words around.
Plagiarism.
I swear to God, Chris, if your words for Ranieri are the Tinker Man, no, don't say it.
Dilly ding, dilly dong.
Any quote you've got for Ranieri, just chuck the book away.
That was my Ranieri notes.
Craig,
talk to us about the one that got away.
2 sub appearances that season. That's all he made. I really liked him though. I really liked.
I did.
Kramaric, and I have written a few things. I think he was a few years ahead of us. I think that was the problem. He was one of those players who could get the ball down. He would be twisting and turning, trying to get a shot off, but he wanted the ball to feet, to create this space and bring other players in. And we didn't play like that at the time. And I think he scored 4 goals. I think I saw 3 of them. I saw him score away at Arsenal and away at Villa. Both headers, funnily enough. But he was like this twisty, turny forward. But the rest of the team wasn't on his wavelength. They were so used to getting the ball to Riyad or just putting it in behind for Vardy that here's a player who would come and want it and make sharp movement and want it to feet. His record since leaving speaks for himself, doesn't it? I mean, 139 goals in 317 appearances for Hoffenheim. Their record goal scorer. I mean, it was interesting looking back at some of the stats. He was clearly going to be a player from when he was in the youth team. For Dynamo Zagreb's youth teams, he scored 450 goals.
Wow.
I mean, that is just phenomenal. And we got him for a pittance at the time. Interestingly enough, as well, May 2021, his former coach at Hoffenheim, Julian Nagelsmann, who is now the manager of the national team, said he's the best player he's ever worked with. And we just let him go because he didn't fit in at the time. Just really, really sad. And I think anybody who watched him play didn't want him to go. You could see there was a player there, and we just needed to persevere and keep him happy and develop him. And I think we just pressed the button too early to let him go.
I think on that season, one thing I remember was that a bit like this season, whenever we got up to the final third, that was it. We kind of stopped and thought, oh shit, what we're doing up here? I've got a nosebleed, and turned around. Oh, Kramaric should come on. All right, he wouldn't necessarily hit the target, but he was prepared to have the shot.
That's all he wanted to do. Yeah, twist and turn. He'd go one way backwards and forwards, zigzagging like 3 or 4 times just to make enough space to get a shot off. Yeah, we really, really should have just persevered with him, I think. But, that's football, isn't it?
Well, it is. But again, looking at what happened, with Vardy coming through, would he have got the opportunities, do you think?
I think what he was something different to the players that we'd got, though. And I think that's the key to having a squad where you can try different things. And we've had managers subsequently who just change like for like. They don't change tactics. They don't bring different types of players on. It's just I'll take a winger off and I'll put a winger on, and Kramaric offered something different in games. And I think over the season since we won the league, I think he would have been a really great option for us.
Yeah. Brad, we've gone through the players. I could say so much about this man, but I know you'd never forgive me if I did. Claudio Ranieri, sir.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Tinker Man no more as he was under Leicester in that season. Where, the man that infamously, until Mourinho got Chelsea the best ever finish in the Premier League, was harshly treated. It felt most clubs that he'd been at. A bit like Long Life Milk, though, in managerial terms, wasn't he? He'd do well for about 18 months, but then he'd suddenly go off the boil. Unfortunately, that's how his Leicester career sort of went as well. He did okay for like the first 12, 15 months, but then we all know where we nearly ended up the season afterwards. But in terms of what he did, he gets so little credit compared to how much he should really get for what he helped this this side achieve, because it's all well and good saying, oh, Pearson's lads, oh, Pearson this, Pearson that. Nigel Pearson in charge of this side doesn't win us the Premier League. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. It might get us top half. I'm not saying he wouldn't have, we certainly wouldn't have been in a relegation battle. And the momentum carry did help that. I'm not denying these things that people like that say, but to discredit or almost kind of rubbish the idea that Ranieri didn't help us win the Premier League, it was all Pearson's hard work. I think it's so horrible to hear about such a great man of the footballing world. He wasn't your 4-4-2 manager. He wasn't your traditional manager, was he? And I was just talking about how he tinkered and got that nickname at Chelsea. He did things so weirdly, and he handled the media so well. I remember near the end, he was like, oh, yeah, give these out to my Sharks. And they were like, no, Ranieri, we love you. And he was like, yeah, say that when it's going badly. When it goes badly, you'll be my Sharks again. And he just had such a charisma about him. And I think the players fed off that more than anything. He might not have been the genius mind that people claimed that one of the best moments ever. Yeah, so you don't get that if you're not a manager of some personality. He might not have been up there with all the tactic books of Pep Guardiola and Jose Mourinho and managers of that caliber gone by. They just had something about him that the club were just on and up, and it's not as easy a job as you think, Chris, because it's easy Sale rode the curtails, the Great Escape helped him, but the club could have gone downhill after the sacking of Pearson. Forget the circumstances as to why he left and what happened in that pre-season, the off-season part. That club could have gone deflated. The tight knit could have gone, or at least been stretched and wavered a little bit. And, and he just did little things that made them going, like promising them, pizza. And then, when the clean sheet didn't come, he's like, maybe I have to promise hot dog and pizza. He just made it funny. He made it fun. He made them enjoy it. And he made them, he just made the players kind of go, look, if you give 100% and you lose 5-2 to Arsenal, the fans won't care as much. Because they'll go home going, you know what, we really tried. They really put everything. And for that entire season, there is not a game that whether we won, which was a lot of them, which was quite handy, but, there wasn't games that even when we had a little bit of a dodgy spell, if you will, over that Christmas period, where I think we drew a lot of games, where you didn't look at them and go, oh, well, they gave up, didn't they? That's going to be the start of the downfall. You never saw that performance, and you don't get that without a quality manager behind you. And I think people need to really look at that perspective of what Ranieri brought to this side. Then
having an argument with Jason Cundy on Talk Sport. Who knew?
I don't know what his last name should be. Sorry, what? Who said that?
Who knew anybody would argue with Jason Cundy? Who absolutely tore me off the fact that we'd sacked Claudio Ranieri after he won us the title, and I had to remind him that his team sacked Roberto Di Matteo after he won them the Champions League, but he had to go, didn't he?
Yeah, it was utterly heartbreaking. It was like kicking a kitten. I went to that Seville game.
Kicking a kitten? Who invited Zuma?
Where we you could almost see the players on the pitch at half time in Seville come on and kind of have a bit of a team meeting themselves, because Ranieri was just losing his way, to be honest. And we got the crucial away goal in that as well. You could see that we were starting to decline, and we were just never going to be that team that won the league and got relegated the next season. He did have to go. It was really sad. But one thing I always remember Ranieri for, and it gives me goosebumps every time I watch it, is when he just sits in front of the press and goes, and now we try to win the title. And every time I hear that, I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting.
Yes.
He kept bobbing it off, didn't he? Like, we're not going to get top 4. We're just going to get 40 points. And then we're going to try to win the title. And someone was like, oh, you finally said it. And he was like, because I can now, because we've got guaranteed top 4.
I was at the, I don't know if you were there, Kate. I was at the Sunderland away game when we won 2-0. And Vardy got the late second goal. And I think it was at that point when Ranieri started believing it as well, because he was famously picked up by the cameras, the Match of the Day cameras, with tears in his eyes coming off the pitch at that game, when he almost thought, we're so close now.
Even like Gary Lineker at the start of the season was like, what did he put? Ranieri? Really?
Yeah.
It was a proper left field appointment. Yeah. He was just everyone's granddad. I actually met him in the street outside my work. He was there at the New Walk Centre doing a bit of a thing for Leicester.
What were you doing walking the streets, Kate?
And I used to work near the prison back then. And he was. My friend said to me at work, I think that's Claudio Ranieri's car. And I was like, no. And it was a Bentley. And it's parked outside our offices. And I was like, I'm not sure. My friend's a Villa fan. And she looked out the window. She's like, oh, my God, he's walking down the street. It's Claudio Ranieri. I was like, no chance. So I legged it out of the office. And there he was on his own, walking down the street. You would have walked past him because he's quite a small man. And I went over to him and I felt really rude, like tapped on his car window because he'd already sat in his car. I hate doing that. And he wound down the window and said, can I have a photo? Like, because you're amazing. And he was so nice. He was like, thank you for coming and keep cheering. We really need you. Like, he was the utmost of gentlemen, a real. And then obviously knowing Andrea Bocelli as well and getting him to the stadium. Like, it's just too much.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, Craig, he was everything impressed that Nigel Pearson wasn't. But I know, Brad touched on this, and people do go on about how much Pearson had to do with it. But if you're going to have success, you've got to have good foundations to build on. And Pearson did leave him good foundations. Plus, he had Craig Shakespeare, who was that the person there that could sort of say, well, he knew the players. So if Claudio Ranieri came in and said, well, I want to play, Kasper Schmeichel up front, he could sort of put him right.
Yeah, and as I touched on right near the start, the decision to switch out Delat for Simpson because he realised what he needed was just somebody who didn't want to get forward as much because you had Mahrez to do that. So we need to stay strong at the back. The fact that he didn't bow, you can imagine that there was pressure from above. We've paid a lot of money for the Swiss captain. You need to find a way to get him back in the team. And he didn't. He found a way of working, a team formation that worked. And he did sort of little tinkering about that. But the fact is that he didn't feel the need to give players pitch time when the team didn't need it. He didn't bow to any of that pressure that may have been coming from people knocking on his door. Why am I not playing, boss, or whatever? And that comes with experience. And that's what he brought to that team. The fact that he didn't panic. He didn't panic when we lost to Arsenal. We had a couple of dodgy 0-0s or whatever in there that could have bought the wheels off. He didn't panic when we were behind against West Ham. And those things that I'm not sure other managers would have brought. He very rarely made like 3 or 4 substitutions in a game because it wasn't working, and where other managers would. He was a tinker man, but he tinkered because he knew that's all it needed, and it was just the perfect moment, wasn't it? All of those cast-off players, a cast-off manager, all coming together in a perfect storm for one season that gave us a moment none of us would ever believe that we would get, and we probably never will again.
No,
we're there to live it. And again, and I'll take it back to all those people who are moaning now. Go back to 2015-16. If somebody said to you at the start, I'm going to let you win the Premier League this year, but for the next 20 years, you're going to struggle, everybody would have taken it. Everyone. And so many people have short memories about what this club has given us as fans.
I don't want to, and I will end on this point, I don't want to rub Gary Lineker's nose in it, but some of us, when Claudio Ranieri was appointed, actually said it was a good appointment.
You also said Van Nistelrooy was.
Yes.
Don't let reality ruin the truth, Craig.
We cannot, get it right 100% of the time, Craig. But I do remember I was writing for the Metro at the time, and I remember doing a thing saying, like, he's never won a title, etc., etc., but he's won cups and he's got to teams into second and third places. And if you could actually just manage to get Leicester into a second or third place, how happy would we be? Yeah. And of course, he did go one better. So look, I'm clinging on to that.
Yeah. I know.
I've still got the link, and I still look at it every now and again.
That is worth any other prediction you've ever made since.
Indeed. Creep. Guys, look, it's gone on for a bit longer than normal. I think we knew it would do. There's a lot of players and people to get through. Thank you all very, very much. Links, everything like that in the description below. Have a good weekend off, and just think next week, Leicester City are back.
Well, thanks for bringing the mood down.
Yeah. Well, I thought we were enjoying ourselves too much, Man City with Ruud van Nistelrooy. What could be better to look forward to?
Oh, no, he's paused.
Is that bad? He's froze. Oh, what a shame.
He's resting on past glories.
He is. He's gone to find that link to post it in the comments.
He is. Sorry the show's gone on so long. Most of it was me frozen.
Yeah. So sorry, this video's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
And it's just at that point when my Tinternet froze. But thank you all thanks to everybody that was in the chat. Really appreciate your support. Thanks to Craig, thanks to Kate, thanks to Brad for being part of that and sharing their memories. And I know Craig was saying at the start about the fact that him and me are a bit of the older generation. I don't think we'll ever see it again in our lifetime. But look, it's there. We've won it. Read them and weep, Newcastle. Yeah, you may have won the old Division 1, whatever it was when you won it. Premier League, that is. Premier League. Forest. Look, we'll be back. I don't know. I think we're going to be back on Monday with a preview of the Manchester City game. If you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for that, for lending me your ears. And I will see you all on Monday. Take care and have a good weekend. Without any football again. 2 weekends on a trot. How good's that? Good night.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You'd better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.